What is up, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the Rossum Assimil8or and its MIDI expander Locutus. Today we're going to talk about the multi-mode and the multi-mode assignments. There are a few different modes, but we're going to go into those in another video. So just to introduce Locutus real quick, it's a 6 HP module that connects to the back of your Assimil8or via a ribbon cable. It's not just MIDI jacks. There is some circuitry in here. They did have to work for it a little bit. But for you, it is pretty much effortless. You just plug it in to the header on the back of the Assimil8or, download some firmware, and then you're off to the races. So to explain the setup real quick, I've literally just got the Assimil8or and a mono output going into the recorder. So we're not processing this at all. We're just listening to the outputs of the Assimil8or. And the rest of the setup is just the poly and play plugged in via the MIDI dongle into the Locutus. And that's it. To go to MIDI setup, all you got to do is hit utility, click on MIDI setup. We're going to go to the multi-mode and the multi-assignment to start out. There's two other assignments. I'll show those in a second, but I think that the multi-assignment is great, and we're just going to start out there. So very quickly, we can get going by just saying I want to use jack channel 1, so this is MIDI channel 1, and I'm going to press play. So now you can hear we're playing channel 1 on the Assimil8or with MIDI channel 1. Let's go to MIDI channel 2. We're going to add some claps. MIDI channel 3. There we go, MIDI channel 4. Oh, that's 5. We jumped to the gun. Let's go back to 4. Cool. So very quick just to get started. I love the layout of the play because you can see all of the drums on different lanes. And, you know, you can do different steps on different channels with the play, but or different channels on different steps, however you want to say that. But for me, it's pretty easy to keep my head straight if I just use one lane of sequencing for one channel. So with this mode, the velocity control still works, the pitch control works, and then anything else that you would want to use on here, like gate length or things like that, those are all going to work with the Assimil8or. So just to show real quick, we'll do another hi-hat here, but we'll just turn down the velocity. So I need to steal this one, put it here. We're going to turn the velocity down on this one. And we'll put another one here. There we go. And then I'm going to add that chord sample that we've been hearing on accident. I'm going to put that here. Let's put it here. Now let's change the pitch of this one. Go to note. Boom, there we go. So we're already kind of started off with a nice little beat. And each lane is right now just a different MIDI channel talking to the Assimil8or. So that is the basics of it. That is the multi-mode in a nutshell. If we wanted to control the zones, right? So we can get more sounds and more samples. There's 3 different ways we can do this. But the first mode is going to be stay in this multi-mode, and we're going to assign a CC to control the parameter zones. So how we're going to do that is we're going to go into utility, MIDI setup, and then CVA, we're going to replace this with a CC. So I'm going to choose MIDI CC 17. And then I'm going to choose my sticks here. We're going to go to zones, and I'm going to say that those can be controlled by CVA. You'll notice I have set up all of my zones to be in the positive voltage range. That's because the CCs do not go bipolar with this setup, so you can't get into the negative range. And so Assimil8or, when you do zones right away, it sets them all up in the negative zones for some reason, negative like voltage range for some reason. So to change that, all you got to do is just click on it, and then you can move that up and down. So I move these all up into the positive range, and these are my stick sound. I'm just going to solo that. And now let's make sure these all have a nice velocity. They do. I should just be able to choose this knob, which is CC17. And if I select all of those samples as I change this, we're going to hear different zones. So right now, we're literally just sequencing channel 4. So this is MIDI channel 4, but then MIDI channel 4 on Assimil8or has 8 different zones. So I have assigned 8 samples to it, and we can select which one we want on there. So if I press play, I can just go through here. Whoops, channel 4 we want. I can go into reverb, which is channel or CC17, and I'm just going to select a different channel for each step here. So real easy for quick pitter-patter kind of textures, things like that. Also zones I love using for like vocal samples, you know, different parts of the vocal chop on different zones, putting different chords on them for a chord progression. All of those things work. But in the MIDI, just in the multi mode, this is the easiest way to do it, is with a MIDI CC. So to recap real quick, we are in the multi mode. We are in the multi assignment on Assimil8or. We're connected via Locutus, and to access zones, all we had to do was just say CVA is replaced with MIDI CC17, and then go into our actual zones and choose MIDI CVA to be the assignment for that, and then we can play those different sounds. So now if we unsolo, this is our beat. You can hear that pitter patter in the background is a little bit more interesting because that sample's changing all the time. So that is the multi-mode with the regular multi-assignment. So again, if you want to use a MIDI CC to change the zones, or you don't want to use zones at all, this is going to be the best mode for a multi-lane sequencer if you're okay with basically monophonic sequencing of each one. One thing I did not mention is if you do have any of these channels linked, that totally works. All of the things still work. You can still control multiple channels with one MIDI channel. So let's say we linked channels 1, 2, and 3. Those are all going to be controlled by MIDI channel 1. And then if we want to control MIDI channel 4, it's still, or Assimil8or channel 4, it's still going to be MIDI channel 4. It doesn't change at all. It's still really easy to understand. So now moving on to the MIDI setup, again, we're going to go into the MIDI multi-VZ mode. So this is the velocity zone mode. So basically, velocity is going to be in control of our zones instead of a MIDI CC. So I'm going to go to this MIDI CC on channel 4. Let's just make sure I just, take that out of there, clear that out. I mean, we're going to go to zones, and we're going to turn the CV assignment off on zones. And now we're just going to listen to that stick again, and just the same sample it over and over again. But if I change the velocity, we can hear those different things. So with this one, you can hear the velocity changing in between our thresholds. It's not the most sensitive right now. I don't have it set up to be super sensitive. I kind of like it where it is, but the velocity still does affect the actual volume of the sample until you breach the threshold of the next thing. So as you can see here, I am recording this information because I hit live record on accident apparently. But now, just with the velocity moving around, we've got that same thing we had with the MIDI CC, right? All right, so then this last one, we're going to go into, instead of velocity, we're going to use MIDI KZ. So now you can hear that my velocity is affecting the actual volume of the sound a little bit more. Yeah, and but we're only hearing one sample again. So for this one, it's actually different notes are going to be your different zone assignments. So again, I've got all these notes selected, so I'm just going to go through here, and I'm going to start changing the note. Well, that doesn't sound right, right? Like we're just pitching it. So how this works is basically there's only a certain range of notes that are going to change the zones, and the rest of them are going to change the pitch of the samples on the end of your zones. So right now, because I haven't gotten into that zone threshold with notes, we're just tuning them. For me, the note that starts the zones is different than what's in the manual. I'm not sure if that's a bug or if it's just my sequencer or if I'm not reading it right, but honestly, I haven't looked into it too far. I figured it out and it works for me this way, so I didn't really look past that. But basically, we start here. You can hear when I start pitching this up, it keeps pitching until we get to F5. Once we get to F5, right there, you can hear it starts back over on that pitch, on that regular, or the regular sample of the regular pitch. And as we go up, we get the different zones. And once we get past 8 notes, we get to that top sequence again, or that top sample again, and it starts pitching. So I think that this one is super useful for piano roll style sequencers. So I'm going to go into piano roll view here. And you'll see that those are all my notes. We're just playing F5 on all of these, and I just lost it. So now I have 8 notes up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I've got all of these notes that I can just choose different zones. So again, if you want just a little bit more control of your zones, this one's a lot more visual than the ones with the knobs, right? CC and velocity are going to be very similar. You're doing those with knobs or parameter sequencing, whereas with this one with note sequencing, it's a little bit more visual. So again, multi-KZ is still, each channel is still assigned to a MIDI channel. So right now we're only sequencing MIDI channel 4, but our notes are in control of our zones. So if we take this off again, we're going to hear the beat. And it was pretty quick for us to make that. If I were using this, I would want some effects on this guy, you know, of course, but like just to get some drums and offload your sampler, if that's what you're doing with the play, or, you know, just using it with another sequencer. This is 2 cables rather than a sequencer like Metron and Volterra, which is what I usually use, which ends up being, you know, at least 8 cables for the gates and a ton more for the CVs. So that gets messy really quick. This just makes it that much cleaner if you have a sequencer that you love that has a MIDI output. So that is the multi-mode and the multi-zones, or the multi-assignments in the Assimil8or with the expander Locutus. I hope it gives you some ideas on how you may use it in your own rig. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.